Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're going to finish the text of the book of Zechariah today. So we're in chapter 14, verse 16, and over the course of the last 3 or 4 chapters, the imagery has gotten more vivid, it has gotten more confusing, and yet the themes are clear. And today, after he has established that he's going to deliver his people, although they would have to come through hardship, and that he was going to put them in a place where they're safe and sound and punish his enemies, he's going to talk today about the complete consecration of his people and final victory for him and the final accomplishing of his eternal will. Although the images, as vivid as they are unusual to us. But I think today these images can be interpreted with a little more certainty than we've been able to muster over the course of the last 2 or 3 chapters. It will come about that any who are left of all the nations that went against Jerusalem will go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, to celebrate the Feast of Booths. And it will be that whichever of the families of the earth does not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, there will be no rain on them. And if the family of Egypt does not go up or enter, then no rain will fall on them. It will be the plague with which the Lord smites the nations who do not go up to celebrate the Feast of Booths. This will be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations who do not go up to celebrate the Feast of Booths. In that day, there will be inscribed on the bells of the horses, "Holy to the Lord," and the cooking pots in the Lord's house will be like the bowls before the altar. And every cooking pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holy to the Lord of hosts. And all who sacrifice will come and take of them and boil in them. And there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts in that day. Okay. Well, I think there are some things here we can identify. The Feast of Booths factors prominently here, and the celebrating of the Feast of Booths. And specifically, those people from the nations who are the remnant from the nations. And remember, Zechariah has told us that there will not only be a remnant among the Jews, but a remnant among the nations, and they together will be preserved. That those who are of the nations will make sure they're there for the Feast of Booths. The Feast of Booths was the feast that took place in September towards the end of the harvest, a harvest festival, in which they made makeshift lean-tos, what the French would call cabines, and not necessarily cabins, but they would take brush and make habitations. And we would remember being a wandering people. It was to celebrate the pilgrimage and to celebrate the end of the pilgrimage that God had brought them up out of the land of Egypt. And so the Feast of Booths, as opposed to the Feast of Passover or Pentecost, the Feast of Booths represents the end of the journey. And so that makes some sense, that we're all going to be celebrating the end of the journey. And if you're not one of those people who belong to God and who celebrate the end of the journey, then you're going to be eliminated with a plague. Plague is associated with Egypt. Egypt is the land of first captivity. And the Egyptian captivity is not like the other captivities that they've endured, because Egyptian captivity was not a punishment for sin. They came to Egypt because God led them there. They came to Egypt by invitation. It was only after a period of time that they were subjugated. And so it makes sense that Egypt and Egyptian captivity would be the great captivity that is remembered and used as the example here. And so Egypt is representing all the enemies of God's people and all the bad things that they've done. The holy to the Lord on the horses' bells, I have no idea what that's about. But the bowls in the homes, like bowls before the altar, I think that's kind of clear. I think he's describing a situation in which every domestic act, every humble item in your home is sanctified thoroughly to the worship of God, so that so that even cooking in your pot is like offering a sacrifice in the temple. And I think it's such a beautiful image with which to end this passage, this book. And in the last line, there'll no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of the hosts on that day. That may seem harsh to you, like it's exclusive, and we like to think of Christianity as inclusive, and it is, because there's the remnant from the nations and the remnant from. But when God brought them back from Egypt and gave them the land of Canaan, they were supposed to fully possess the land, and they never did. And that led to everything else that happened afterwards. And so he's describing the situation in which everything is perfect again, in which the land is fully cleansed of idolatry, in which God's people live secure, in which every cooking pot is an item of worship before the altar of God. Is a very beautiful image that he uses to end the book of Zechariah. Okay, well, on that sweet note, we're going to bring to a close our study of the text. I want to take a little time tomorrow just to talk about, or the next time we're together, all the specific prophecies about the coming Messiah, the coming kingdom that we have here in the book of Zechariah. We'll see you next time.